Good evening and welcome to a new show brought to you by Success Studios. This is called the Sonali Show. We have had a lot of questions, from different walks of life. People have asked us about HR, about marketing, about finance. So we decided that all these questions we'll answer through this program. Unfortunately, today we were supposed to go live due to technical glitches that could not happen. So, we are going ahead and recording the show, and we are still going to broadcast this on all our social platforms. So, with that, let us quickly understand, our today's guest. He's an HR expert, and he has been in the industry almost for 3+ decades. Mr. Vikas Saxena, welcome to the show. And of course, we are delighted to have you. Sorry for all the glitches and all the tensions that we went through to get this started. I'm sure that our audience will have patience for the video to be published. And of course, I'm really, really happy that you could make time. You were there on our Success Mantra show as well, and very well appreciated by all our audience. And today, I'm sure with all the questions which have already come from various people, that is what we are going to be addressing. So before we go ahead, Vikas, you have been a corporate
Thank you.
professional. Welcome to the show once again. And
Thank you.
yeah, you have been a corporate professional, and you have also been a consultant for a long time. Would you like to tell us and quickly take us through some of these challenges doing the transition from a HR leader to a HR expert and a consultant?
Thank you, Sonali. You see, the journey from being an HR leader, as you call me, to an HR consultant has been a very interesting one for me. Because I had my compass right. When I had joined the HR domain, when I took up the HR domain, that was some in the year 1993. Uh, I was, it was more by choice and by design, because prior to that, I was in marketing. And I felt that I would do well to make a transition to HR. And I was then working in the corporates, and I joined the function. And the journey has been a very interesting one. During the corporates, where I logged in about 3+ decades, and after that, more than a decade as a consultant. The journey has been interesting for various reasons, because it met with my expectations as I viewed HR.
Right.
I always felt that HR is not a staff function alone, it is a line function. And I've always believed that a line manager is an HR manager, and HR manager is a line manager. Having come into HR, I realized that one could understand the employee better. If you're functioning in some other mode, in some other function, your relationship with the employee is more transaction oriented. It is not oriented towards the person. And
Right.
having come into HR, I got to understand people. I got to really feel, empathetically about them. And I decided that this is going to be my cup of tea. And that's how I have been. And as a consultant, well, whatever I could not accomplish as an HR leader or as a functionary in HR, I'm doing so right now, because at that point in time, you see, when you're working in a corporate, you are definitely working with one hand tied behind your back. The
True.
reason is very simple, because the companies, right or wrong, we're not going, that's not the point. They have their constraints and restraints. So you don't have a free format, to run the show. You have to be determined by a lot of policies that they come out with, and you feel that something more should be done. Now, as a consultant, my accountability is to myself, and I'm
Right.
heading my consulting firm. And I am accomplishing whatever I had wanted to do so earlier.
Very well said. I completely, resonate with you because when you're in the corporate, there is a certain format, certain structure, and there are a lot of constraints that you need to operate, along with. However, the moment you have your own consultancy, It's like you're a free bird. You can serve
Absolutely.
everyone, and you can address a lot many
Absolutely.
more issues they are facing today. So I've had a similar experience as well. And here
Mhm.
we have another question from Mukul in Kolkata. He says, what kind of, so he's a young graduate and he wants to opt for HR. So he's asking that what kind of competencies or behavioral traits one should have to come into this profession.
A very good question of Mukul. See, it's nothing that, to come into HR, you require to have skills which is something like rocket science. As long as you feel that you can honestly relate with people, that's the most important thing. You know, trying to relate with people and sincerely so,
Right,
because people is business, and minus people, there is no world, there is no business.
right.
So how to relate with people is basically, the empathy factor. That is a very important skill, a very
Mhm,
important value, that an HR person must have.
mhm.
Second thing is, secondly, the point is that a person must understand that if he is to enter into HR, it is a very big challenge, because you see, you are looking at the internal customer.
Right,
So the employee is always the internal customer. And if the
sure.
internal customer is happy, so will the external customer be. And HR is an interface between the department, between the function and the employee, and between the function and the management, right?
Mhm.
So at that in that particular thing, a particular skill that I would say is really required
Hmm.
is the ability to relate with people, all right, but also to understand people's expectations and the employer's expectations, and to bring about a relationship between the two. Now,
Sure.
there lies the rub. So this is not something, which people hitherto thought was a back office function. Now everything has moved on.
Mhm.
Now HR has become pretty strategic. It has become more people oriented. Earlier we had the personal function, with due regards at that point in time to the personal people, there was a distant relationship. Now that has
Sure.
got narrowed down. People, HR people have become, buddy managers
Right.
for the employees, and they are interfacing pretty well. So this is one thing that is really required. Apart from that, of course, definitely, I think some appreciation of HR as a subject in itself is also required. This is what I feel are the basic things that are required to enter the profession.
Absolutely. Because, unless you have this passion for people, it's not a profession that you should
Exactly,
jump into.
exactly. You see,
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to add to that.
Yeah.
When you are relating to people, you have actually got to step into their shoes, and that's
Yeah.
only possible when you take off your own shoes.
Absolutely. Very
So
well
that's
said. You take off your
the
own
only
shoes.
way that you can do that is that.
Right. Like one interesting anecdote that I would like to share here. So when my son had to select a profession, he said, I would rather go for a technical profession because it doesn't involve so much of interaction and, iteration, talking to people, managing teams, and so on and so forth. And that's how he went into flying. So, the ability to understand, some people get it by virtue of their day-to-day experience. And I guess today we are privileged that there are a lot of psychometric assessments and there are also a lot of other instruments available in the market, by virtue of which we can identify which profession suits who. The
Sure.
next question that we have is from Gautam Puri in Delhi. And he says that what is the role of HR in the pandemic times?
Oh, it's a
He
lovely question.
also, yeah, he also writes that a couple of suggestions for better employee engagement would be very helpful.
Correct. You see, this is the acid test of HR.
Sure.
And why is it an acid test of HR? Is for the simple reason, because, you know, hitherto things were different. Now, during the pandemic is still continuing. We haven't come out of the woods, right? And HR's role is actually becoming more meaningful and purposeful by the day. Ask me why. And this is what he has done. You see, this is the time when HR people can really relate with the employee. Uh, the simple way is, you see, we are 99.9% of the people are working from home. You take a sales guy, he is more in touch with the HR, with his boss or with the sales manager. They're
True.
always talking about business. And if he has any problems, he doesn't know how to present it before his boss.
Right.
Similarly, if he has got a finance related issue, now this is where the HR guy steps in. And the moment he
Absolutely.
steps in, there's no problem if he makes a call to the employees, ask them
Uh-huh.
how are they,
True.
how are they feeling, how are their family members, are they having any problems. That is one. That is definitely going to act as a very good, I would say, a healing touch, because right now many employees are affected not so much by the COVID ailment, in as much as by they're feeling psychologically very much at sea.
True.
So this is the time when HR should actually step in. And HR has in many organizations, like I know in many of my client organizations, after I have interacted with the managements, I have ensured that HR people do interact with the employees. So the employee engagement, the connect should not get diluted. In added to that, there can be many programs which HR people can organize, many
Uh-huh.
training programs,
True.
to keep not the employee occupied, but to keep the employee skilled, to make the employee get a sense of belonging to the organization, not leave
Right.
him out in the cold. You see,
True.
because there's no physical interaction because of this social distancing or whatever, but there should be no emotional distancing. So this is one thing very important. C is, of course, to ensure that the minimum hygiene factors, salary disbursements, incentives, bonuses are all paid in time, all very well computed, and the employee should get a feeling that he is not only an employee, but he is a very strong stakeholder in the organization. And that is a
Right.
very important thing. Instead of trying to have a very mechanical robotic show going on, have the employee aligned. Do not let him feel or her alienated. That's a very important thing.
Beautifully said, because I hear a lot of my HR colleagues in the industry today struggling with this aspect when it comes to, working from home, managing, the tense environment which is right now, and also, managing work. And somehow, some of them have actually said that their workload has increased. And it's a moderation that, like, how does one really convey, because it's tough times. If you say a no, you don't know whether your job tomorrow is there or not. So any thoughts on that, what how people should be dealing with it?
See, uh, you're trying to tell me that people have this feeling of insecurity?
Yeah,
Is that what?
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
right. You see, this concern is valid, and it becomes valid only when there is no touch time. When the employee is not taken into confidence, when there is no transparency,
True.
then the employee feels totally lost out. He feels that he's in the cold. He is, being managed remotely. Now, true, everything is being managed remotely, but the fact of the matter is, has the employee been told that what is going on in the organization? Has there been a proper communication going on? Right? The employee communication, is a very vital factor. And whenever there is a communication gap, all kinds of fears come to the fore. And job security, income security, continuance in the job is becomes a very, very valid concern. People, often get to hear that, so many people have been laid off. So the first thing at this point in time, if a person gets laid off or he feels threatened, is like rubbing salt into the wound. And this is where the HR people should ensure that the employee feels comfortable inside the organization, a lot of importance should be given to the fact that he needs, or he or she needs, to be told what is the state of affairs that their management is being confronted with. And on one hand, I find, Sonali, companies saying that we want to, our productivity has increased, our
True.
profitability has increased. Then why should they be talking about laying off people? If your
Absolutely.
productivity
It's
and
such a
profitability has
dichotomy. Even I
increased,
don't
so you
understand
should
why.
keep the
Yeah,
people on. Right.
true.
And recruitment is an opportunity cost. If you let go of people at this point in time, then feel that when the good times come again, you're gonna find it very difficult to recruit talent and to take off at that point in time.
Absolutely.
So it's best to keep the flock together, keep them engaged, keep on communicating with them, have transparency in your communication, and don't let them get the feeling if there have to be salary cuts. I think the top brass should lead by an example.
Yeah, very well said. Absolutely. Bang on. All right. So the next one comes from Subramania from Chennai. And he is saying that, what is is HR alone supposed to deliver all responsibilities in context to people, or is it also a responsibility of the line managers? So what is the percentage of responsibility, and how should it be allocated?
Okay. At the outset, this feeling that somebody, in the setup comes up and says, it is not my job, it is their job. It is not my job, it is HR's job,
Right.
right?
Uh-huh.
That, creates a big hiatus
True.
that adds to the concern of the employee. Now, true, there are many functions or many sub-functions within the HR domain, which can be best looked at or best handled by HR experts. But surely one thing is there, that the employee, there are certain issues which the head of our team should be able to handle. I mean,
True.
I'll give you one very simple example. Let me deviate from this. I'll give you one example. Take an armed forces unit, which is posted on the front. Now, if a Jawan walks up to the officer and says, Sir, my family is in distress, my son is not being able to get admission, and they're having some fiscal problems. And what if the commanding officer says, I can't do anything about it, right? You handle the gun, handle the enemy. This you have to put up with. Now, do you think that the Jawan will have that morale, you know, kept alive? He is physically present, but he is mentally back home. So you have already brought about an alienation. But that is exactly what does not happen in the armed forces. Why did I give this example? Because they are the ones, who are battling the toughest conditions. There, the officer commanding will say, Don't worry, man. I'm going to take care of you. He sends a message to the base camp, and somebody goes and takes care of the family. That is why
Right.
you will find the bonding so very high. Why can't it be replicated in our kind of an environment? I fail to understand. Some organizations have achieved this. So when to say that this is not my job, it's the HR's job, is a statement which is uncalled for.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the team leader, be a sales manager, be the finance guy, or be anybody, if he's a non-HR functionary, should take upon himself. There should be some role taking, right? Connect the person immediately to HR, right? But there are
Right.
many things which the manager himself can handle because he knows his people better than what HR guys know. So this is a function which can be handled with there. It does involve cross-functional roles. Yes, at the same time, there are certain things which, you know, the HR guy alone can handle.
So, Vikas, do you feel that leadership coaching as well as trainings and workshops have any role to play in this context in preparing, people for this supervisory role? Because sometimes a good individual contributor is all of a sudden made into a supervisor, and the required skills are not imparted. So that's a, like a huge danger, not only to the people he's managing,
Yes.
but also to his own KRAs. So what would you say is the role of workshops or trainings in this regard?
Sonali, this is a very, very key point, and let me tell you, uh, let's begin with something. You and I are in the space of
True.
coaching, training, and mentoring.
Absolutely.
You and I have been in the corporates for a very long time, right?
Sure.
And I would like to endorse your point for the simple reason that, y- training is an enabler and development is the result,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And if you read Stephen Covey's book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People,
True.
Covey writes, keep your saw sharpened,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it so happens now in today's context, if training is diluted or if training is undermined, what happens, many problems come to the fore. And let me tell you, it is not just technical trainings which are required. Man management, leadership, coaching, communication skills, right? Presentation skills, all these things are required, and behavioral skills, life skills. This has to be a process which should be carried out on a perennial basis by any organization which is really committed to its people. So let me underscore what often gets undermined in some organizations, that training is given, a slipshod. I mean, there's not just attended to, or it is felt that, hey man, it's, a big expenditure, we can't spare people for training, we
Yeah.
this is not required, they can do that. No, that will, ultimately destroy the organization in the long run. So look, I mean, you'll find me giving you examples time and again, every now and then. I mean, let me give you an example of the armed forces. Why do the key themselves train throughout the year? Will the enemy send them a wireless
Absolutely.
message? I'm going to attack you tomorrow. And did the pandemic inform us? Did the coronavirus inform us that it is going to strike? No, it just came.
True.
So
Absolutely.
training is very much required
In
all
fact,
along. Coaching and mentoring are supposed to be, things which an organization must attend to on topmost priority.
right. What I see a lot of organizations, and again, I do understand that a lot of clients have been very, like they have taken their accounts back and so on and so forth. But the fact still remains that, like if you have an untrained resource, it can be a risk for you to lose more clients. So it is better to invest on training and have all your resources at an optimum skill level to ensure productivity and performance, rather than
Absolutely.
compromising this
Absolutely.
aspect.
Absolutely.
True. Okay,
Absolutely.
the next one that we have is from Santosh. He's from Bangalore. That's wonderful. And he runs his own company. And he says that HR processes are always so complex, and how to do competency mapping and all the 9 yards of, all process keeping and so on and so forth. So, do you have any solution for this? In fact, when I saw this, I remembered our conversation on creating this toolbox, which is almost in place. So, would you like to talk about, how this can help startups?
Yeah, sure. Sonali, you have also been dealing with startups pretty well.
Yeah.
I have also been doing likewise.
Right.
Let me tell you that HR processes being made complex is something which, HR processes need to be revisited by HR people themselves. You see, is something like this, that if the process becomes difficult to be understood by the employee, if there
Hmm.
are no illustrations given,
True.
right, the employee feels, this is all, something which is going over my head. And how does it begin? Let's look at, I tell you one thing very vital, which is vitally important. Let's look at the onboarding process.
Sure.
We do the onboarding very mechanically, most of
Right.
us, in many
Absolutely.
cases. It's just like filling up the joining formalities, telling you who's who, and that's it.
Ticking the
And maybe
boxes.
a few more steps, right?
Yeah.
So actually, you have what you call onboarding, you have actually done offboarding. The guy comes, he fills up and he doesn't know what is going on,
True.
right? And then, there are a lot of lectures that are given. You have to get the guy emotionally on board. You have to get the guy totally on board. Your processes should be so simple, they should become intelligible to the employee. There should be processes, the flow chart should be given. There should be standard operating procedures. More often than not, organizations are more into, firefighting, troubleshooting, and crisis management and ad hoc processes. This does not speak well for any organization which keeps on indulging in trying to in tackling such issues. True, there are many issues which come up all of a sudden, but there has to be some contingency planning, right?
Absolutely.
And these complex processes are always a result of lack of planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly something comes up, you know, are we trying to, build an organization, or are we trying to weaken the organization? And the organization gets, a strong organization means that the people are strong. They can understand, not physically or strong, but professionally, mentally, emotionally so strong. The processes should be such that a person should know. You should not look upon that. This is if I the do's and don'ts. I think that they are very scary, very very scary.
Yeah.
So if a person is told, what are the Lakshman Rekhas, if this thing happens, this is what has to be done. And this has always got to be a part of a very good, laid out induction and orientation process, right? And that really
Absolutely.
should not be one of those things should be given a slipshod, thing. I feel that. So processes have to be made simple, as simple as that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think, like I would just like to highlight that we are working on this toolbox for HR, and which
That's a
can
very good
definitely,
initiative.
it's a plug and play model. We're
That is
working
a very
on
good
it and we'll
initiative.
be
I think
sharing. Yeah.
people startups will
Yeah.
benefit hell of a lot from this. There's no doubt
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely. So fantastic, Vikas. Great having you. And of course, you are part of the team. So we'll keep having these conversations for the benefit of our audience as well as our clients to come up and ask their questions. And of course, I'm expecting our technology partners are going to solve this issue of going live, and it'll soon be up and ready, and it's going to run fine. So thank you very much once again for
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sonali.
sharing
And
your
it's
thoughts. Yeah.
I deeply appreciate your initiative in demystifying HR. That's good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.